Welcome to The Becks, a podcast that explores multimedia horror with host Becky and Sydney. Join us as we talk about movies, books, video games, music, and much, much more.
Hello and welcome back to The Becks. My name is Sydney Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Snow.
Today we're talking about... I just made a mouth noise! I have been editing recently. We have been editing our own episodes, and I am an annoying person. That's all I can say.
I love her. She's my podcast partner. I'm pretty annoying myself.
You like to say...
Like, a ton. So I apologize to our listeners.
Anyway, we're talking about Hereditary.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I swore I would never watch this movie again.
Same.
Yet, she made me.
Adam was too intrigued by my hatred. Well, hatred is a strong word. My trepidation towards this movie.
It is an extremely well-made movie. It is extremely effective for what it was supposed to do. The cinematography is crazy amazing.
It's incredible.
But it's a movie that if you watch it once, it really gets to you.
It's once is usually enough for most people.
Yeah.
I was content to never watch this movie again, but
Me as well.
here we are.
Yeah.
So, did you know that Hereditary was actually this director's directorial debut? It's his first movie.
I did not know that. That's crazy.
It's pretty impressive.
That is very impressive. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that that's your first movie ever?
And he got pretty decently big actors in the movie. Toni Collette is
she's
an A-lister.
She's creepy.
She's good, though.
Oh, she is so good. It's horribly, horribly good.
So, the basic plot of Hereditary, for those who are listening who maybe have not seen it, is about a family who the matriarch dies and all of the messy fallout that happens after that. It's a family of 4, mom and dad, sister and brother. Peter is older. He's in high school. He's like 16 or 17. Charlie is like 13.
She's 13. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. I watched it last night. She's 13.
And they're pretty well off monetarily. The mom, played by Toni Collette, Annie, she makes models.
Okay. Yes. She makes dollhouse models. And that's creepy.
They're so intricately designed, though. Like, it's really impressive.
It is super impressive, but it is super creepy. It really adds to the creepiness of the film. I don't care what anybody says. It's creepy.
Yeah, she makes little dolls of everybody, and she makes a school at one point. She makes her own house and all of the little dolls that make up her family.
Including her mother, who was dying, because her mother was living with them while she was dying.
Right away, you get it's made pretty obvious that Annie does not have a good relationship with her mother. Her mother seems very narcissistic, abusive.
Yeah, you don't really see the mom much other than pictures and flashbacks of things that she's remembering. But the mom, as far as being present in the film, is just kind of, she died and they're remembering and there's things like that. Her things are there. There's different things that pertain to her. So you really don't know everything. But
yeah, you don't know much about her. Like, Annie, she talks about how Charlie was...
And Charlie is her daughter, 13 years old.
Yeah, Charlie was her mom's favorite.
Yes.
Of the 2 kids.
So it really starts out quite just going into... The opening scene is showing the mom's obituary.
Yeah.
And then it shows them in the morning, the day of the funeral. And Charlie doesn't want to get up. And, she's sleeping out in their treehouse, which, by the way, Their treehouse is almost better than my house.
It's a pretty fancy treehouse.
Yeah, there's no heat, but they take heaters out there. So, yeah, it's a pretty fancy treehouse. I'm kind of jealous.
And Charlie is kind of obsessed with it. She spends a lot of time there. She also spends a lot of time drawing. She's kind of antisocial.
Yeah.
She's upset that the grandma is gone, but at the same time, she had also a very complicated relationship with the grandma. Apparently, the grandma told Charlie that she was supposed to be born a boy, which is kind of a messed up thing to say to a kid.
Yeah. So I did take notes, till I got to the point where I couldn't take notes because it was freaking me out so bad again.
Did you watch it alone in the dark?
I watched it alone, yes. So the creepy doll things in Charlie's room freak me out.
The little dolls that she made?
Yes, creepy. Oh, so creepy. But we really don't get to see those until later in the movie, so I'm probably getting ahead of myself a little bit.
No, I think I remember them kind of showing her bedroom a little bit and seeing them, but they didn't get very close. They just seemed like weird homemade dolls, which I thought kind of... I connected to Toni Collette's character making her little miniatures.
Yeah, very well could be that. They were quite different.
Yeah.
But, so it shows the funeral. It starts out at the funeral. They're at the funeral, and Annie gets up to do the eulogy for her mother.
Wow.
Eulogy is,
It's not a very nice eulogy.
Yeah, this is where you really find out that the relationship is, from the get-go, super strained. There was not a lot of closeness. And she comes right out and says that they were estranged
for many
years. But she loved her. She was surprised to see people there because she didn't know that her mom had friends. So that was a little sad to me and foreshadowing, kind of, that she didn't know any of these people.
I mean, and let's be honest, she didn't have friends.
No. She didn't.
They're not friends.
But Annie thought she did because she saw all these people that she'd never met. She didn't know any of them, but they were there to apparently celebrate her mother, which,
Yeah, there's a lot of mixed feelings you could tell that Annie had about the whole situation. As someone who also had a complicated relationship with her mother, and then her mother died, it was equal parts, happiness that people showed up to the funeral and was there to celebrate her life, and equal parts bitterness because where the fuck were they her whole life? You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and not to mention Annie's relationship with her mom is very strained anyway, so...
Well, yeah. When they get home to the house after the funeral, Annie says to her husband, how am I supposed to feel? Am I wrong for not feeling bad?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's something that a lot of people feel that have been through, whether it's abusive relationships with their parents, toxic relationship with their parents, things like that, and the parent dies. I know my children had a very complicated relationship with their father, and he passed away in 2019, and I saw those emotions with them. So, yeah, that's a scary thing to see that because you just don't know how to feel.
Yeah. And really the main character in this movie, I don't know, okay, so this movie was marketed super smart because I remember when me and James watched it, I think it was in COVID was full swing. It came out in 2018. Mm-hmm. But when we watched it and something happens to Charlie in the middle of this movie, which we'll get to in a second, I was shocked because I was like, okay, that's the main character. What are they doing?
Yeah, no.
The main character is Peter.
Yes, and you don't know that. You have no idea that that's the way it's going to be when it starts, especially when you do see the marketing. Everything's Annie and Charlie.
Yeah.
And then
Annie is the main character too, but really it becomes more about Peter.
So I found it interesting after the funeral when she was tucking Charlie into bed that Charlie looked at her and said, who's going to take care of me now when you die? That was kind of like a stab in the gut. She said that to Annie when Annie was tucking her in at night. And she said, well, I'm not going to die. I'm going to be around a long time. And
Yeah, it was very strange because it was Was the implication that the grandmother took more care of Charlie than Annie did?
It seems to be that way because, okay, so when where were they getting ready to go when Charlie looked at her mom and said, I miss Grandma? She was just like out in the field. She went out without her shoes on. And she was sitting there and she looked across the field and saw a lady sitting in a circle with fire around her.
So Charlie was just hanging out in the field. They weren't going anywhere. So it was when Peter asked his mom if he could go to the party.
That's right.
And Annie realized that Charlie was like nowhere to be found. And she's like, where the fuck is Charlie?
Because Peter had said, does she even want to go?
Yeah, which I found really strange too, that Annie insisted that Peter take Charlie to I know he passed it off as like it's like a school thing, yeah. But they're not in the same grade.
No. And they're at least 3 to 4 years apart. So, yeah, at that age, that's a big difference.
Yeah, and I mean, you could tell that Peter really loved Charlie, but
yes.
He still was trying to smoke weed and get laid. He didn't want his little sister around.
No, which you can't blame him. I mean, she's 13.
No.
But, yeah, so when she went and looked for her, Charlie was actually sitting in the field and standing in the field, and saw this woman sitting there with a ring of fire around her.
And she was naked, wasn't she?
I believe so, yes.
There's a lot of saggy boobies in this movie.
There's a lot of old naked people.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how old. I'm old. I would probably fit right in with those saggy people, but whatever. So, the point being, she saw this woman naked in the field, fire around her, and Annie grabbed her, and that was gone.
Yeah.
And she berated her for being out there without shoes on because it was too cold.
Which I always thought, too. Okay, so full disclosure, when I first watched this movie, I hated fucking Annie. I hated her character. I hated everything about her. Thought she was a huge fucking bitch. I didn't feel like that the second watch around. I had seen some stuff online talking about what a complex character and stuff she was, which she is. She's very multifaceted. She has lots of issues and complexities and, all that stuff. But in the subsequent rewatches, I had a lot more sympathy for her. But I still think, weirdly, she was super harsh with Charlie all the time. And I don't know if it was because, obviously after we're seeing Annie in a kind of fugue state because it's, her mom's dead. She's not sure what she's doing. She lived with this woman for however long, had a very complicated relationship, and now all of a sudden she's gone and she's having...
Yeah, there's a lot of emotions and different things that are going on in her mind.
Yeah, so
I don't think she knows how to deal with.
So I'm not sure if it was just a symptom of that she was being harsh with Charlie, but it also felt usual for them because it wasn't Charlie was super surprised by anything that Annie said or did. Neither was Peter. So she's just weirdly harsh with Charlie. And then to make Peter take Charlie to the party.
And so before we get to the party, the kids are at school. And Charlie is sitting in the classroom drawing. Because this leads to something very important.
Right.
She's drawing, and the teacher walks up and says, do you think you should finish your quiz first and then draw? And Charlie didn't seem upset. She just said, yes.
Yeah, she just kind of, put her drawing away.
Yeah, but you could tell she was frustrated, and then all of a sudden, a bird slams into the window of the school. Like, bam!
Yeah. Then it cuts to Charlie outside of class on lunch break or whatever. She grabs scissors from the classroom.
Yeah.
Takes the bird and cuts off its head with the scissors.
Puts it in her pocket.
And puts it in her pocket.
Yeah. That was fun.
She's always snacking on something too.
Chocolate bars.
Yeah. And at the funeral home, actually,
Dad asked if it had nuts in it.
Yeah.
And then Mom said, does it have nuts in it? I have the EpiPen.
Yeah.
So
she has a pretty severe nut allergy that's established early on.
Yes. So those are important things that going forward, you need to know.
She uses the bird head when she gets home to make a little doll with it.
Yeah, creepy.
Which, it kind of interested me in kind of a morbid way, because how much decomposition is that bird head going to go through?
Well, full composition, I would think, unless she put something on it to prevent it.
I guess I've just...
She didn't clean out the innards, did she? So...
Oh, not that we saw.
Yeah, so it's all there.
Fun.
Yeah.
So, Annie insists that Peter take Charlie, because he wants to borrow a car, too.
Yeah, so she says, take your sister. But Charlie did not want to go. She said no multiple times. Well, she said, why? Why would I want to go? Why? And Annie was saying, well, because there's other kids. And Charlie didn't care for that. That wasn't important to her.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't seem like Charlie had any friends.
No.
She wasn't bullied. It wasn't showed that she was, like, bullied at school or anything.
No, I think she was just...
kind of an outsider.
Yeah. And
or a loner.
Mom wanted her to have friends, is what it seems like. She thought if she immersed her in that situation that maybe she would enjoy herself, and I don't know.
If your child is an introvert, forcing them into extroverted activities is not going to endear them at all to you. And it's not going to help anything either.
Absolutely
So don't
not.
do that.
So they went to the party.
And it's a high school party.
It is.
There's drinking. There's pot smoking.
Did you notice, I'm sure you did, that I didn't the first time I watched the movie, but the second time last night when I watched it, the scene that was very foreshadowing on the way to the party.
What is it? Was it just the telephone pole?
It was just the telephone pole.
I did see that, yeah.
Very in your face. There's a telephone pole. And it was just that scene of
I'm pretty sure when I first watched it, I looked at James and was like, why didn't they edit that out? Like, it's just a shot of a telephone pole.
Yeah, it is. And they stay on this telephone pole for longer than you would think any movie would show a telephone pole. So,
yeah.
It's very foreshadowing now that I know.
One thing that I like about, and because Peter is my favorite character, and I'm so upset by what happens to him.
Ugh.
He's such a sweet kid.
He is. He loves his entire family.
And he was not, I don't think he was really resentful at all towards Charlie for having to take her to this party. Like, he did kind of ditch her.
I think he was annoyed, only because he was an older kid, but I don't think he was resentful at all. No. He just didn't want to force her into it if she didn't want to go. That is the first thing he said. Does she even want to go?
Yeah.
Not, why should I have to take my sister, you know?
Mm-hmm. And the other foreshadowing thing that happens, which I did catch when I first watched it, was the fact that there was a girl cutting walnuts in the kitchen.
Yes.
Which, it's very subtle. It's not like in your face that it's happening. They're going through the house. He finds a couch for Charlie to sit on. He's like, just hang out here, you know, whatever. And she's like, I don't want to. Like, where are you going?
He's totally going to smoke weed.
Yeah.
Hook up.
Be with a pretty girl.
Yeah.
And finally, he sees the cake and
apparently Charlie likes cake.
Tells Charlie, hey, they got chocolate cake. You should go get a slice. And she's like, they're not going to give it to me. I don't know anybody here. And he's like, they're not going to care. Just go get cake. I'll see you later. So he does kind of ditch her, which not very nice, but he's a teenage boy.
It's pretty standard when you have a younger sibling that happens.
The thing is I remember, because I have two older brothers that I grew up with, and I wanted to hang out with, particularly Adam, all the time. My age gap was more, though, because when Adam was 16, I would have been 7.
That's the way my brother and I were. We're 8 years apart, my oldest brother. And yeah, I wanted to be around him all the time.
Like, my brother played guitar, and one of his friends named Todd, shout out to Todd, I thought I was going to marry you, played the drums and had a mohawk.
Wow, geez, you couldn't get any cooler than that.
7-year-old me was besotted. Like,
I'm sure. Oh, boy.
So I wanted to hang out with him all the time, and my parents were just like, he's a teenage boy, he doesn't want to hang out with his little sister. Like, you can hang out with him later. Right now he's with his friends. And it was something that I had to learn.
Yeah.
Begrudgingly.
Of course. I know.
But Charlie and Peter don't seem to really have that relationship as much. I think she just didn't want him to leave her in an unfamiliar environment more.
Yeah, for sure. She was not comfortable there.
Yeah. Which I would have just stayed in that car, personally.
Me too. I wouldn't have cared. I would have said, I'm going to sleep. Lock me in. Good to go.
So Charlie eats the cake and starts to go into anaphylactic shock. Yeah. Some time passes. And she does go upstairs, and by then Peter and his friends are pretty...
Yeah, he's ripping on a bong.
Yeah.
She walks in, and
and he tries to hide it from her. He's like, what's up?
It's a big, giant glass bong. It's not being hid. It's like, what are you doing up here, Charlie? And she said, I can't breathe.
My throat feels like
it's getting smaller.
Yeah.
That really bothered me.
And he immediately knows what's going on.
Or no, wait. My throat feels like it's getting bigger. So, like it was closing off, I think is what she said.
Either way, the language that she used
was very hard to hear.
Yeah.
Because she was...
and it just kept getting worse, too. I wish you hadn't recreated the sound.
I know. Well, we need it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So he grabs her and runs out with her.
Yeah.
And he's carrying her.
Yeah, immediately. And he
in the car.
He asks about the EpiPen. They don't have the EpiPen.
Yes.
So he's driving straight to the hospital, which is so smart because I know, especially with how young he is, my instinct, my first thought would be like, I need my mom.
Yeah.
Or my dad or whatever. But he doesn't fuck around with any of that. He's just like going straight to the hospital.
Yes.
Which I'm sure with as severe of a nut allergy as she had, maybe they'd been through it before.
Yeah.
And so he's driving really fast. He's going like 100. And he just keeps telling Charlie, like, hang on, we're almost there. We're going to be there soon.
And she's really struggling.
Yeah.
She cannot get air. It's her body fighting to stay alive. And she rolls down the window to try and force air into her lungs. She sticks her head out, which is, I can attest to this. My dad was in congestive heart failure. And we were on the way to the hospital, and he could not breathe, and he did that. He didn't lean out quite as far as Charlie, but he did do that, and it did help him breathe on the way to the hospital because that air pressure is being forced into the mouth, into the lungs. So she was very smart, and maybe that had happened before too, but she pretty much put her whole torso out the window.
Which would have been fine.
It would have been fine.
I do want to point out.
It definitely would have been.
But a deer
was laying in the middle of the road. Big, huge deer.
And Peter swerved and sideswiped the telephone pole.
Consequently, decapitating his baby sister.
Yeah. And he slams on the brakes immediately. And he you can tell he knows what happened, but he can't really like fully process it. So he's just staring straight ahead. I don't even know if the car's in park. I think he just has his foot on the brake. He's breathing super hard. He just barely glances over his shoulder and whips right back around, faces the front. Couple seconds go by, and he
sits there and he talks to himself. You can tell he's in complete shock, and he's like, I'm okay. It's okay. Really quiet under his breath.
Yeah.
And he did put the car in park because at that point he puts the car in drive.
In drive, okay.
Yeah.
And he drives home. Now, when I first watched this movie, I was like, how can he just be driving home? But I have never been in a situation like that, and you do weird shit when you're in shock.
100%.
And he's honestly lucky he didn't die in his fucking sleep because he just went home and went to bed. I mean, I don't think he slept well or anything, but you can die from being in shock. Like, your body starts to shut down and that's what shock is. It only focuses on the really important organs. So your brain and your heart, everything else, the kidneys and stuff, the liver, that all starts to fail and stuff like that if you don't get treated. So... And my brother, so this is what started this whole episode. Adam. Which, again, he was so fascinated by my trepidation of this movie that he's like, no, we have to watch it. And I'm like, you're going to regret it. It's a good movie. It's a great horror movie. It really is.
It really is. It really, really is a very well-made horror movie. There's no doubt.
However.
But this is very traumatizing.
Yeah. And even he was like, why? He can't just be driving home. And I was like, he is in shock. that poor kid.
His brain shut down. His brain completely blocked out everything.
Yeah.
So he could survive. Because I don't think he would have lived, like you said, I don't think he would have lived if his brain hadn't done that for him at that moment in time.
I can't even imagine being responsible for something like that happening. And it was an accident. I don't want it to seem like I'm blaming Peter at all.
100%. He was trying to save his sister.
Yeah.
It was horrible circumstances. Yeah, that's why they're called accidents.
I gotta say, too, one thing we forgot to mention about the telephone pole. When they focus on it at first, there's a carving in it.
Yes.
It's like a weird little carving. It looks like a rune, kind of.
Yep. Stupid telephone pole.
the real villain of this movie.
Yeah.
So he gets home. He goes to bed.
And then it's the next morning. This is the part that... So, I
can't even imagine as like a mother. I'm sure it really affected you, too.
Yeah. So he's laying in bed, and he hears his parents talking. And, we can hear them muffled. And she's like, do you need anything from town? He's like, no, drive safe. She said, okay, be back in 20. And then you hear the door shut. And then you hear her scream. And it's a scream that only a mother losing a child can possibly know. And it is so gut-wrenching. And I've been there. I had to tell my mom, even though she was much older, and her child didn't die in such a horrible fashion, but I had to tell my mom that my oldest brother had died. And that is the only time I had to hold my mother up. She lost her husband. She lost her father. And she screamed those guttural screams. And I will never forget that sound. So Annie is literally screaming. And then they show her in the bedroom with her husband on her knees, just screaming, I want to die. I want to die. It hurts so bad. It hurts. And that was a very hard scene for me to watch.
No, it's...
Because I know that's the way I would be if I lost one of my children.
It was horrible. Totally horrible.
Oh, she did an amazing job in this movie.
Yeah, Toni Collette is a real one, for sure. We've talked about her before. She was in Velvet Buzzsaw.
Mm-hmm. But just the extreme emotion that she showed was phenomenal as an actress. She has my respect 150%.
Yeah.
So her baby girl has been decapitated, and she found her body. The head was not there.
They actually cut to her head.
That's horrible, too.
Quite graphic. There's flies and everything. Terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty disturbing.
Like, I didn't really need that.
No, I didn't either.
Mr.
They did not
Astor.
have to show her head with ants crawling in and out of the orifices on her face. Nope. I'd have been okay not seeing that. The scene where she was decapitated was bad enough.
Yeah. Which they don't show happening, by the way.
No.
It's just the implication in the sound and everything like that.
You see her body out the window, but you don't see, like, the head come off. Anyway, horrible, horrible, horrible. Mother is devastated. Father is devastated. Peter is 150% distraught. And he doesn't know what to do with himself.
Which, fucking day one of this movie, with the eulogy and everything, I was like, this entire family needs therapy.
Oh, for sure. They should have all been in, like, probably inpatient therapy. It was horrible. Rough.
But especially, this made me angry as just a person who knows what trauma can do to someone. The fact that they didn't immediately get Peter help for what happened really made me mad. And I understand that they had just lost their child, but they had another child that they were responsible for, and they needed to be thinking of him too.
Exactly.
Especially because he did it,
Yes.
Again, it was an accident, but
he was the one that was responsible for his little sister when this accident happened.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what he spent every day thinking, is I killed her, I killed her, I killed her.
Yeah.
For sure.
Annie thinks that too.
Yeah.
Even though she doesn't want to, I do want to say that's one of those things where you can know a thought is horrible and not fully believe it or whatever, but it's still something that circles your head like a cuckoo bird, right? I think she was of two minds. You know, the fact that she didn't want to blame Peter, but also Peter literally is the reason it happened. But also, I think Annie blames herself because Charlie never would have been in that car if she hadn't insisted.
Exactly.
That Peter take her to the party.
Now, was the letter from the mom in the book, was that before the party that Annie found where she said, "I'm so sorry for the things I did that may have upset you. Please remember that your losses and whatever you
doesn't
find."
Yeah, she doesn't find the book until later because she can't even force herself at first to go through her mother's things. Okay. It isn't until later.
Because I really hated how she signed it, "Love, Mommy." I thought that was really weird. Because most mothers that don't have a decent relationship with their daughters would call themselves Mommy.
Yeah, it was fucked up and weird. It was kind of infantilizing a little bit.
Because my son calls me Mama, but we have a very good relationship. And Roger calls his mom Mama. But for her to say
Mommy. I hadn't called my mother Mommy. Not sarcastically.
Yeah.
Since I was probably 9.
Yeah.
You know, that's a little kid shit.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it, but it is weird. You're right.
Yeah. I thought strange. It disturbed me a little bit because they didn't have a good relationship.
So one thing I do want to point out is, Annie actually tries to go to grief counseling after her mom dies. Okay, so she does go once, and she kind of they're like, "Oh, we got some new faces. Who wants to share?" kind of thing. And she doesn't want to share at first, but then she kind of explodes out with all the trauma and shit. And
she's very angry when she's talking, and I don't know if it's anger for being there, for needing that, or just angry at the whole situation.
Or her mom, or, whatever. And she's like, "I don't even know why I'm here. This sucks." But I think somebody was like, "Wow, yeah." Somebody in the group was just like, "Preach." And she ends up going back after Charlie dies, and she runs into this woman in the parking lot.
Yeah, because she goes to leave. She decides she's not going in. She goes to leave, and the woman runs out in front of the car and waves her down.
Her name's Joni.
Yeah, Joni.
Fucking Joni.
Oh, fucking Joni. Yeah, Joni. I don't swear on my podcast. See what you do? Make me watch this movie.
Yeah, it's me. Okay.
All Sydney's fault. No, it's Adam's fault.
Which he's listening now.
I know. Well, now he knows.
Yeah.
Bad Adam.
So she runs out in front of her car, which I just want to say, with hindsight, that was a fucked up thing for Joni to do. It almost caused another car accident.
Right.
After what happened to Charlie.
Yeah.
It feels a little pointed, is all I'm saying. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just like connecting things that nobody needs connected. But Joni was like, "Oh, how are you? How's the family? I was at your mom's funeral." And Annie's like, "I don't know who the fuck you are. Like, okay, you knew my mom. Who cares?" But then, I don't know. They kind of just make a weird connection.
Well, she doesn't tell her she knows her mom. Remember, she says, "I lost my son and my grandson. They drowned 4 months ago." She doesn't tell her she knows her.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, because when Annie goes to her apartment later, she sees the embroidered welcome mat.
Yeah.
And which is just like the ones her mom made. So that's where that connection comes in.
But she still doesn't know it for sure until later.
No, until later. But yeah, Joni just said, I saw you months ago when you came when your mom died. Are you doing better?
Oh, that's right.
And that's when Annie says, "My daughter died."
Yeah, and then Joni gives her little sob story.
That her son and her grandson drowned. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which, do we think that was real?
No.
You think it was totally fabricated?
I do. I think it was the whole thing to get her there where she wanted her to start down that path that they lead her down.
Yeah, so instead of going back to group, Annie starts hanging out with Joni and ranting and raving to her.
She starts hanging out with Joni.
Yep. And then Joni runs into her outside of a craft store and was like, oh my God, the best thing happened.
Yeah.
And she talks about how she talked to like a psychic medium and was able to get in contact with her grandson.
They did
again.
a seance. And they brought in scientists and skeptics, and they all were changed. She could tell they were all changed. And her grandson came through.
And she was able to talk to her grandson and know that he was okay, that he was at peace. He wasn't scared or cold or anything like that. And Annie's obviously very skeptical about this whole situation. And she's just like, okay. She's trying to be nice. You can tell.
She is trying to be nice. But Joni hauls her to her house. Not good.
Yeah. And she actually is able to contact, quote, air quotes, I'm making air quotes, her grandson while Annie is there.
She asks him to talk to her. And she has a chalkboard, and it writes, I love you.
I love you, Grandma.
Yeah. No, creepy. That doesn't happen. Maybe it does. I don't know, but I don't trust things. Told you, no Ouija boards in my house.
Yeah, the candles blow out. Annie feels something like touch her, and she immediately is like, fuck this. I'm out. But not before Joni can be like, hey, I know you're freaked out. I'm sorry for freaking you out. That wasn't my intention. Here's the ritual that you use to talk to, that you can use to try to talk to.
And make sure if you say these incantations that you say them when everyone is in your house, your husband, your son, and you. You all have to be there for it to work, to bring Charlie back.
Yep.
Oh, and we didn't mention.
Yeah, so Charlie has a vocal tic where she clicks her tongue. Yeah, just like that. So it helped soothe her when she was at the funeral home for the service for her grandma. She also does it when she gets a little nervous into different situations. But it's something that they all knew very well was Charlie. Yeah. And you can tell that it was a normal thing for Charlie to do, because later on in the movie they start hearing it.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Peter in particular, when
Peter's experiencing nightmares.
Bad nightmares. And it's actually revealed. Who does Annie tell about the gasoline thing?
Joni.
Oh, it is Joni.
At Joni's house.
Okay, so the first time that she goes over to Joni's house to vent about what she's going through, the grief and everything like that, she talks about how her relationship with her kids is kind of fucked up because when she used to sleepwalk. Yes. And one day she woke up.
And Charlie was sleeping with Peter.
Yeah.
In the same bed.
They were really young.
Yeah, they were young. They were in the same bed. And she sleptwalked into their room.
And she woke up holding paint thinner.
Yes.
And she was pouring it on them.
She was covered in it. They were covered in it. And she was about to strike a match.
Yeah, she had an unlit match in her hand. Charlie is too young to remember that.
But Peter remembers.
But Peter wasn't. And she talks about how angry she is at him for not forgiving her for it because she wasn't doing it voluntarily, right? It was just...
Yeah. And she says, I woke up as soon as I struck the match and I put it out. I put it out. Why would he be mad at me? And that made me angry because I thought, I think that would make anybody angry with you. I don't know that I could forgive someone if I woke up out of a sleep and they were standing over me. I was covered in an extremely flammable liquid and they were going to light my ass on fire. It would be very hard to ever trust someone to that point again. Don't you think?
Yeah.
No matter what you do.
Yeah.
No matter what you do. Whether you're sleepwalking or not.
Yeah, and that did bother me a little bit. I could tell that some of it was just frustration in general. Again, she's grieving her mother in her own way.
For sure.
She's grieving her daughter very extremely.
Yes.
But it just bothered me that she blamed Peter for that still, because it's... Your mom is supposed to be the safest place for you ever. You know?
Yes.
That's your home. It's supposed to give the best hugs. Supposed to love you unconditionally. Whatever. Peter lost that.
In that instant. Yeah. It took away his innocence.
Yeah.
And that's hard for a child to get over.
And maybe if they had just gone to therapy together.
Maybe.
Would have been fine. All that to say, I just think it's very understandable that Peter has a poor relationship with his mother.
Exactly.
Because instead of working it out in therapy and taking sleeping pills or something,
yeah,
she just decided to
He should just get over it.
They all just decided to move on.
We're just going to deal with it and move on. A lot of families are like that, though. Trauma, you just move on, you forget it and go. And that's why things are so messed up.
Mm-hmm. I just don't get that. I really feel like her husband should have been more proactive about it. Cause he
seemed kind of like he was wimpy when it came to her. He didn't really stand up to her. He kind of coddled her for a while. But maybe there's a reason, because sure didn't work for him when he did stand up to her.
Wasn't he a psychiatrist?
I'm not sure.
Becky's going to do a quick Google search. I remember him being like a doctor. Or maybe I'm just remembering because he emailed a doctor or was emailing a doctor.
Well, he was emailing lawyers or whatever because the mother's grave had been desecrated within a week after that.
That's right. And he had decided not to tell Annie about it because she was already too upset. But yeah, the headstone was destroyed and the body was exhumed. Yeah,
the body was missing of the mother. Nobody knew where it was. Agreed. Okay, I'm trying to figure it out. He's a psychiatrist with a PhD.
Okay, so what the fuck? Genuinely? What the fuck? If he's a psychiatrist, why is he not... I'm not saying he should treat his wife, because that's a conflict of interest. It makes sense that she is not his patient. But if he's a fucking expert... He's an expert in his field. He has a PhD for psychiatry. Why are none of the fucking people in this movie in therapy?
Yeah.
Confusing.
Agreed. Because it's a movie.
Well, yeah.
Hey, did you know, I'm just throwing this out there, that Joan did not really actually have a son and a grandson, because the board, the chalkboard that she says was his favorite, apparently you can see her buying in a scene in the movie. So we missed that. That's something that I don't remember seeing. So.
I wonder if it was in one of her bags at the fucking craft store.
Probably. I am not going to watch this movie again to see if I see it.
That fucking
But if you want to, you can tell me where you saw it.
She's a two-faced bitch.
Yeah, it was all set up.
It was. And we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. So Peter's suffering from nightmares really, really bad.
Annie is psychotic because she's lost her child. Yeah, she doesn't know how to deal with it.
She's sleepwalking again. In fact, she sleepwalks and wakes up above Peter's bed again.
Yeah.
She doesn't have anything, does she?
I don't think so, no.
But she like hallucinated that bugs came out of his mouth and shit.
Yes.
And she's like screaming. He says something to her that I think makes her mad in the dream. And when she wakes up, Peter's like underneath her on the bed, sweating and super scared.
Yeah.
Probably having flashbacks when he was a child.
Probably. There's just so much that goes on in this movie, like little innuendos, little things. She keeps getting messages from the company she was supposed to be doing miniatures for, asking her, when will this be done? And then, of course, after Charlie dies, then they're saying, whatever time you need, let us know. We, of course, understand. We just want to know where you're at with this.
Yeah, they were very accommodating,
Yes.
I feel like, considering it didn't seem like she took a lot of time off in the movie.
No. And this kind of leads to, you can see her getting more and more stressed.
Yeah. And she makes a fucking miniature.
Oh, this is sickening. Sickening.
She makes a miniature of the car crash.
Yeah.
And even paints her daughter's decapitated head.
Yes, with a blood trail coming from the car with the body in it down to the head. It's... Yeah, and then her husband is like, hey, why are you doing this? Don't let him see it. And she said, well, it's just my take on the accident scene.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if she was trying to say that it was like being cathartic, like she needed to do it or whatever, but yeah, what if Peter had seen that?
Horrible. I don't think Peter's needs ever were her main priority. I think she cared. But I think she was so messed up that his needs just were never... It was her heartbreak, her confusion with her mother's death, and then her confusion with her daughter's death, and her all-consuming grief. Mm-hmm. Which I understand. I, as a mother, would get that. However, that poor boy... Yeah, just a kid.
You still have a responsibility to your living children.
The scenes at the school where he's smoking weed with his boys... his group of friends, they're underneath the bleachers, and he's smoking weed, and he's like, I feel like my throat is getting bigger. I feel he was feeling, I think, what he thought Charlie was feeling. Those were disturbing. That poor kid. Man.
Yeah, and he starts crying, like freaking out.
Yeah, and tells his friend, just hold my hand. Just hold my hand.
And they do.
Yeah.
Which is very sweet.
Yeah, that's rough. Oh, sorry, I'm skipping around. There's just so much.
Yeah,
my mind is...
There's a lot. It all leads to Annie doing the ritual.
Yeah.
She's intrigued enough by what happened, and she's devastated enough to try and reach out.
I think at this point she's manic. She's completely manic. She just wants her baby girl back in any way that she can have her.
And she does reach something. Something writes messages out to her in Charlie's old sketchbook.
Yeah. And
she's so excited by this.
Crazy excited. She wakes up both Peter and her husband almost immediately. I need you to come downstairs. It'll all be okay. I figured it out.
What she doesn't see, but we see as the audience, is that the sketchbook starts flipping pages and is scribbling out Peter.
Horrible pictures of Peter. Different pictures with his eyes crossed out and his mouth gaping open and just really creepy.
Horrible shit.
Yeah.
This is like the main scene in the movie that really bothered me. I don't know why this one bothered me so much. Alex Wolff, who plays Peter, is an incredible actor.
He is.
And he acted his dick off in this movie.
Yeah, he really did.
So when they start to try to do the seance, her husband and Peter very unwillingly, by the way. Peter gets very scared. The lights are flickering, the candles guttering in and out. Annie actually gets possessed by Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's Charlie's voice, and she's like, what's going on, Mom? I'm scared. Where are we?
Mommy, where are you?
I can't see anything. And Peter is really freaking out. Like, he's crying, tears streaming down his face. He calls her Mommy.
Yeah.
He's
Mommy,
like,
please stop.
Yeah, he's like, Mommy, please stop. I don't want to do this anymore. And the dad's like, what the fuck is going on, Annie? You know, whatever. And it doesn't stop until he splashes water in her face.
Yeah.
And Annie's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why'd you do that? She was here, you know, whatever. And Peter he's like screaming. He's crying so hard.
Yeah.
And her husband is very unimpressed by what just happened.
As he should be.
Yeah. It really goes downhill for Peter after this.
So bad. Oh, poor Peter.
He starts really hallucinating shit at school. He sees this weird light or reflection or something.
Which we find out what it is later.
Yeah, and it chases him. And I don't know if he's in class. I don't know if it like possesses him or what, but he like...
Oh, this was a creepy scene.
He's dead staring.
And his face starts to contort. His hand comes up.
Yeah, like something is controlling his body.
Yeah.
And then he slams his head repeatedly into the desk until his fucking nose is completely broken. And of course, the school tries to call Annie. But Annie, I think, is in the attic.
Was she in the attic then, or was she destroying her?
She destroyed the miniatures earlier.
Okay. So then she was in the attic.
Yeah, she was just looking at her mom's stuff.
He comes in earlier, the husband comes in earlier, and he's like, what is the smell? What is the smell in here? Mm. And that was foreshadowing what she was going to find in the attic. And
yeah, so, after the seance, she like starts to go through her mom's stuff and starts to find weird occult shit.
Yeah.
And that's when she decides to go up into the attic because there's more of her mother's stuff up there.
And she had tried to burn the sketchbook because she saw the sketches of Peter and she had tried to burn it. And when she threw it in the fire, she lit on fire.
Yeah. So she's obviously like, okay, this isn't working out the way that I thought. She's starting to get a little freaked out. But again, it's not really about, it's like what you said, it's not really about Peter. It's about Annie being freaked out by what's happening.
Yeah.
So the school tries to call Annie. Annie's busy in the attic So they call Dad instead. He goes to pick up Peter at the school, which, why was that kid not in the hospital? Like, it seemed like like the school nurse patched him up or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like he had like a fit or a seizure. They should have called an ambulance or something. I don't know. That was weird. So while Annie is in the attic not getting these phone calls, she finds the source of the smell.
She opens the attic and there's flies everywhere. Yeah. They just buzz her face. Which I'm not going up in my attic if that happens. Just an FYI, ever.
No, if there was a bunch of flies and a bad smell, I would just let the cops take care of it.
Exactly. But, up she goes. Do-do-do.
And she found a dead body. She suspected that it was her mother because there was a ritual circle.
Yeah. And there were candles lit all over in her attic. Apparently they've been burning for a while. But the mother is headless. There's no head. Again, things are headless.
So she's not for sure that it is her mom, but there's like a picture of her taped on the wall behind the body and everything. So you can draw the conclusion, right? Yeah. That it either is her mother. I mean, we know that her grave got desecrated. Annie doesn't know that.
Yeah. And Annie had found in one of the books earlier, she found a paragraph that had been highlighted that talked about how he would enter what is his name?
Pantalaimon, Patagonia. It's not Patagonia.
No, it's not Patagonia.
Hashtag not sponsored. It starts with a P, though. He's a trickster god.
Paimon.
Paimon, okay.
So King Paimon, which is a demon.
A demon?
A demon. A demon. A demon. Anyways, the demon, he is supposed to enter a male body.
Yes.
Is what it says in this book of whatever. So she reads this, we read it, blah, blah, blah. So again, mother's headless in the attic. She's pretty sure it's her mother. It looks like her mother. She freaks out.
Yeah, so she's like...
And vomits.
Yeah, she like runs out of the attic, runs down, and at this point, Peter and Dad come home.
And Peter is completely catatonic out of it in the backseat of the car. They have to carry him in. Yeah. He says, grab his feet. Okay.
Hospital.
She's already psychotic. I'm not taking my son into a house where there's a dead... No. Why did I not call the police when my mother's dead, decapitated body is in...
He even says, he's like, oh... When it comes out, because Annie's like, please, I'm freaking out. Shit's happening. I'm pretty sure my mother... She goes on this whole monologue about how her mother's dead body... Yeah,
she's very manic about it. Just blah, 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 blah. I guess you would be if your dead mother decapitated was in your attic.
Her husband is even like, oh, I should have known you were the one that destroyed the grave and dug her up.
So apparently she has had, obviously, we know from her standing over the children with paint thinner that she has had psychotic breaks. Apparently in the past, or at least that's what we think they are. I think it all leads up to what we're looking at the end here. So yeah,
she's just like, please, I understand. They get Peter in bed and everything like that, but she beseechingly shows him the journal, and she's like, I tried to burn it, but I started on fire. Like, can you just
and she's begging and screaming like, please. Please, 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 just do this. I understand. I know you don't trust me. Please, please. She is just completely...
She says she's trying to save Peter.
Yes.
At this point.
She said that all the pictures are of Peter, and if they don't do something, that he could die. He's in danger. If he just burns it, if he burns it, then everything will be okay, because she can't burn it.
Because she'll light on fire, but if he throws it in, she'll start on fire and die, but Peter will still be alive.
Yes, and she's the one that started all this, so she needs to put an end to it.
And it kind of seems like he's going to humor her again, but to his credit...
He's over it with her.
Yeah.
He's done at this point. He wants really nothing to do with her.
And he says that. He's like, I'm not entertaining this anymore.
Nope.
And she's super disgusted by this, and she rips the journal out of his hand and throws it in the fire, and immediately her husband is immolated. He catches on fire and burns to death and is screaming. Yeah. And she's screaming. But then she's not screaming anymore.
No. Oh, no. No. I was alone in my room. No, man. Screw you, Adam.
She gets possessed.
Yeah, she does.
And she goes to look for Peter.
Yeah. Peter comes down the stairs. Oh, no. Peter wakes up in bed. Oh, this is the first part. Peter wakes up in bed, realizes he's home. He's in pain.
He's confused.
He sits up, and then you see that...
You see out of the corner of your eye, in the very uppermost corner of the bedroom, Annie, or whatever's piloting Annie's body, rather, is like crab walking on the fucking...
Yes, she's crab walking. Ugh, creepy. Of course she's in white. Why wouldn't she be? So she can be even more scary.
She's in like her pajamas or whatever.
Yeah, no. God, no. Mm-mm.
And every time he could see her, she crawls out of the way.
Yeah.
And he goes downstairs and he's calling for his mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees the burnt up husk
Of his father.
of his dad, and he sees his wedding ring.
Yeah.
So he, kind of makes that connection, and he's freaked the fuck out. He tries to run, but Annie followed him back downstairs.
Yeah, because she's in the corner of the ceiling, in the corner of the room, just there, staring at him. Just staring at him at that point. Just creepily way up in the ceiling, because, they probably have 12-foot ceilings, just up there. And he sees her. And he runs, and she chases him.
And he runs up to the attic, which, that made me so mad. Why do people run upstairs?
I'm running out somewhere. I don't know where. But, yeah, no. So he gets in the attic. And this part freaked me out. Because he's screaming, Mommy, stop. Mommy, please. Mommy, Mommy, Mommy.
Because she's hitting. She's like...
slamming her head. It's so fast. It's like...
So he pulls the attic ladder up with him, so she can't climb up the ladder. So she's just outside the hatch, upside down, hanging on the ceiling and banging her head.
Like so Becky quick, said, I can't even imagine. And he's just crying, Mommy, please stop. Mommy, please. Screw that.
Yeah.
It was horrible. It's terrifying. And he's terrified.
There's flies everywhere because of the dead body. And then he realizes that there are other people in the attic.
I forgot about the scene. Because this matters too. The scene where he was at the school sitting out there eating his lunch or whatever. And Joni was across the street and she was screaming, Peter, get out. Get out, Peter. And he could see her and she kept yelling at him. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I do. Fuck Joni.
That was foreshadowing. Didn't really understand, but yeah, they wanted to get rid of Peter.
All my homies hate
Joni. So anyways, he sees naked people.
And he tries to run away, but
he sees the naked people and the decapitated body.
Yeah.
No, the decapitated body was already gone. You could just see where the fluids were.
Yeah.
Because they had moved it.
They moved it. And is somebody... Does he get knocked out? No, he jumps out the fucking window.
Jumps out the window.
Which, props. Same. I would do the same.
Me too. So he basically falls to his death.
Yeah.
He just hits the ground. Bam. And then you see this little light come zooming across the grass and enters his back. And he wakes up.
Well... Not Peter.
No, Peter doesn't. His body wakes up.
And he goes up into the treehouse.
Yeah. And on his way to the treehouse, there's a bunch of more naked people leading his way. And he's just so calm. He's just looking at these people like, okay, here I am.
Yeah, and he climbs the ladder to the treehouse, and they put a crown on him. And Joni's there.
Yeah. Freaking Joni.
And she's like, we prepared this body for you. It was the perfect body. This is how you're meant to be, Charlie. And
again, leading back to Grandma saying you were supposed to be born a boy.
So they say that, and he goes, and the movie ends.
Mm-hmm. As he's looking at the decapitated bodies that are kneeling for him.
Oh, fuck, I forgot. In the attic, his mom gets in there somehow.
Oh, yeah, this is bad.
This fucking traumatized the shit out of me because it was the noise.
Oh,
the noise of it, right? She has a fucking garrote or something. I don't know. It's like wire or something, and Annie is just on the ceiling and she's fucking sawing her own head
And
off.
it's a squishy... I don't know sound. I can't even...
How dare you make that noise?
I have to make noises. It's my job in this podcast to make noises. It was horrible because you just hear that. You don't know it's her. You just hear this.
And then you look up and you see her, and she's obviously struggling through it.
And it's just, and quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. And so that's when he runs and dives out the...
Because I think that the impression that I got is to get Payman to leave the body again, the body has to die.
Yeah. Obviously, you have to be decapitated to achieve what they needed because Charlie had to be killed to enter. I mean, this was all part of it. Her decapitation was part of it. The grandmother was decapitated. So
posthumously.
Yeah. And so, but then you go back to Charlie was cutting the bird's head off with scissors.
So true. I didn't make that connection before. I just thought it was her weird doll collection.
Yeah, no.
It's all connected.
Decapitation things.
Yeah. So that was one thing that I didn't fully understand about the movie. Because I was like, is Charlie Payman? Is Charlie a sacrifice to Payman? So he's like a trickster god that you do shit for him and he gives you riches.
I'm pretty sure that Charlie is Payman.
Okay.
She was brought into the world to be, but she should have been a boy. Mm-hmm. Because Payman enters a boy's body. So.
Yeah. But the thing about the clicking that kind of bothered me too was it was supposed to kind of be this demon god, right?
Yeah.
That they brought to life in Peter's body or whatever. But the fact that Charlie makes that clicking noise made me think that, okay, how much of it is Charlie suppressed? Because that's almost more horrifying, too. Like, she died, and then she's, like, potentially sharing a vessel.
No, I think she was sharing a vessel with Payman.
The whole time?
Yes. Because I think Payman had entered her body as an infant. And I think that was it the grandma's decision to do that? So that's where... I didn't know if the grandma set that all up but Annie did say I wouldn't let her have Peter. I gave her Charlie.
That's right.
So she probably had planned to put Payman into Peter all along, but she was not allowed near him. So I wonder if it had to be a baby in order to accept it because maybe as a child grows older, they can't be manipulated enough.
Yeah, I remember that now. I remember Annie making a point of keeping Peter away from her mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie's so fucking tragic, and it's heartbreaking, and it makes you pissed off. It's a difficult watch. There's kind of this creeping dread.
Okay, so do you want to hear this about the clicking?
Yeah.
The clicking is a way to suppress her inability to deal with emotions. The clicks signifying that Charlie's mind has bottled up and compartmentalized her emotions and thoughts that she hasn't dealt with. So probably the whole fact that Payman was there. It's how she dealt with all of it.
Oh, wow. Yikes.
So they say it was kind of her way of crying out for help.
Hereditary, everyone.
Oh, this is horrible. I shouldn't read this anymore. I should quit.
Why? What does it say? Now I'm curious.
It says, this is from GameRant.com, just so I'm quoting who this came from. It says, it makes sense that the clicking is actually Charlie crying out for help because when Annie forces Charlie to go to the party, something Payman and the cult wanted to happen, she is repeatedly heard making the clicking sound several times in the back seat as Peter drives. This could mean that Charlie knew what the plan was since Payman was in her mind and was desperately trying to get Peter's attention so he would not take her to the party where Payman would intentionally eat the cake filled with nuts, causing Charlie to suffer from an allergic reaction and be too far out in the middle of nowhere to receive medical help.
Man.
Anyway, there's other theories too, but...
No, I feel like that's
I do believe that she knew he was in her mind.
No, I think that's a good theory because everyone in this family is so concerned with her nut allergies at all times, even at a fucking funeral.
Yeah.
With a candy bar that obviously someone in her family bought for her, right?
Yeah.
So why would Charlie eat the cake?
Without knowing what was in it.
It doesn't seem like something that someone who with extreme nut allergies like that would do. She never seemed negligent when it came to taking care of herself.
No.
I mean, she went outside barefoot in the cold or
Yeah,
whatever.
but that's a kid thing.
Yeah.
13 years old. Who wants to wear shoes, right?
Pretty sure I was the same way. So, other people live in your house?
Yeah, that.
All right.
So this movie is traumatizing. There's just no way around it if you watch it. Yeah. It's a great movie. Great movie. Great horror film.
And again, the fact that this is it was his first movie that he ever directed, Ari Aster.
Yeah, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Good,
this movie
good.
It was very well received by critics and audiences alike. I really hope I never watch this movie ever again. I don't know why I would.
I'm not watching this movie ever again.
Because again, it's an excellent horror movie. It's very effective in its storytelling, but it's not a very good time.
No.
You don't have fun watching this movie. He also does Midsommar.
Ugh. We'll talk about that at some point, too.
Yeah.
That's traumatizing. These traumatizing movies are ridiculous. This is what we love to do.
Yeah.
So I do think we should do an episode on The Shining.
Oh, yes.
Very soon.
The date that we're recording this is July 11th, and it's unfortunately the day that Shelley Duvall passed away. Best known for playing Wendy in The Shining.
Yes.
She was an icon.
So I do believe that may be something we do very soon, just as...
I do want to... I recently watched The Shining. It was this past Halloween. I made James watch it because he'd never seen it.
Oh, no. What?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a long movie.
It is a long movie, but it's The Shining.
I want to try reading the book so that we can have two perspectives of it. But it's a very large book. So
so it may be a while. But we do want to send our condolences out to the fans and the family of...
So it was revealed in the news article that I read about it that she died from complications of diabetes, which both me and Becky are diabetic.
Yeah.
So not the funnest news.
No, for sure. She was a young 75, is that right?
Yeah, 75.
So...
Yeah, she wasn't old enough.
No, for sure. The world lost a icon today. So.
Yeah. That's it for Hereditary. What are we going to talk about next? I don't think we've discussed it.
We haven't, so it'll be a surprise. I still have to play that game, but...
Little Nightmares.
Yeah. It is a nightmare. I get lost. For me, any game's a nightmare, because I'm not a gamer. Anyway, we will do that at some point. I guess we'll have to figure out what we're going to do, so it'll be a surprise for you, the listeners. It'll be a surprise for us, the podcasters.
Not too much of a surprise. I got a whole notebook filled of books and movies and games and stuff.
She makes lists. I'm
good at it.
Yes, she is. Anyway.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. My name is Sydney Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Snow.
And we're the Becks. Today the pod, tomorrow the world.